Hi there, and welcome to the Experience Podcast. My name is Dennis. I am a flash of light in a moment of time, and today I have with me two very beautiful souls, and I'm just going to let you all introduce yourselves.
My name is Neil, and I am a multi-dimensional spiritual being that's having a human experience. And go for it, Noelle.
My name is Noelle, and I am love. I'll just keep it simple. In our community, we are aiming to be that thing that we really are, and that we have not noticed that we were, lots of us, for many years, and we're coming to find out, holy poo, we got all kinds of amazing stuff in here, and it is definitely time to shine that light out. And I get to be on this podcast because I am encouraging Neil and Dennis to live their passion, and their passion is in part is to share people in this experiential way with you. And I am a person that would like to share because I've got stuff I'm up to that I want folks to know about. And I feel a little bit like if you guys can back and forth with me at some point if something triggers your interest.
Well, something that I had in mind was like with this thing of you having something to contribute and something to express. Has that always been the case for you?
Well, I always had the feeling I wanted to, but no, it was absolutely a pretty, my early experience on this plane was really very dark. I had a belief in my, I don't know, you might want to mute when you're not talking because there's music and noise coming through. I don't know if you hear it, but I hear sound coming through. Yeah, so I'll it's a little noisy back there. That works better. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I had young parents. They were teenagers when my mom got pregnant, and they were beautiful people. They were in love with each other. It could have been very wonderful, but somehow or other they just couldn't figure things out very well. And so I was kind of in many ways just not receiving what I think probably most children could use if they want to grow up in that kind of takes a village to raise a child way that they're doing over there in Costa Rica. So I just really interpreted that as that I was worthless and just shouldn't have been born. I was a burden. I was taking, my mother had a life planned and I ruined it. And there was just all this kind of interpretation that I put on myself based on the lack of, attention and, just stuff that teenage children are not necessarily going to be very good at parenting, not most of them, I would say. So I really did a number on myself with believing terrible things about myself for a long time, to the extent that I went to mental hospitals many times. Well, not many relative to some, but I was in four different occasions. I was locked up in hospitals, and I was given diagnoses like schizophrenia, manic depression, chronic depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, atypical bipolar disorder. There were 8 altogether, and it started when I was age 6. When I got a label of emotionally disturbed, which I would say that really encapsulated the whole thing right there. They didn't have to keep coming up with new names. I was very emotionally disturbed. And
yes. So that was going to be a question I had. Now, with them giving you that diagnosis and diagnoses, what was your perception of yourself at that time?
My perception was I was a living hunk of shit, to put it in very plain graphic terms. There was no value whatsoever. It's weird because somewhere the world was reflecting back to me that I had a lot of value. I had a lot of kids that liked me. I was, very socially adept in some ways. And so it wasn't like I was just alone in my room being miserable all the time. I actually had, during my childhood, especially as I got a little older, a lot of fun because there was no supervision whatsoever. So I got to do whatever I wanted. And I lived in Brooklyn, New York, and there was a lot to do. And I mean, literally like walking up the train tracks and finding some like little office somewhere with nudie posters all over it, or hitchhiking, or going to the World Trade Center, or the Empire State Building, or the Statue of Liberty, or just going to regularly stealing money and going to Coney Island. Always hooky. I mean, I was a thief like nobody's business. I did horrible things which I didn't really think about the consequences of, but like I lived right over the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, and I just throw things at cars because that was exciting, and nobody told me that that's not okay, and hopefully nobody died. I'm not 100% certain about that. So you're enjoying that, Neil. Anyway, so it wasn't all hell on some level.
I do find it fascinating.
What was that?
I find it very fascinating.
Oh, well, good. But the internal experience was, especially as I got like a little bit older, as an older teenager, that I was miserable inside. I just thought so badly of myself. And there's a few language things I'm going to do here because it's reality for me, but I would walk around that fucking cunt. You're such a fucking asshole. I can't believe you're such a, just nasty shit. 24/7, that will put you away. Trust me, if you want to go to a mental hospital, do that for a few years and you're going to go. So
can you define in depth that recipe? If someone actually wants to go to a mental hospital, and if they want to do all these things, can you define that recipe so someone can have that recipe if they so choose?
Yes. So whatever it is that you're up to, look for the indication that you made a mistake, that you're guilty, that you're, worthless. Just continually seek out evidence of you're just being a piece of shit. And if you do that and you constantly do a mantra of you are a piece of shit and you made a mistake and what an asshole you are, and you do that long enough, and I don't think it would take all that many years, but I did it for a long time. I'm a strong person. I did it for many years, and eventually, what happens, so this is the good news, what happens if you do that long enough is you crack open and the truth comes through, because you cannot live a lie. That a lot of people seem to be doing it for a very long time, so I suppose I shouldn't say that. We are powerful children of God, and if we want to live a lie that is that counter to the truth, that's the opposite polar, I am love, that's the truth. I am not a piece of shit, that's not the truth. So I was living I'm a piece of shit for so long. For me, I cracked open, and cracking open looked like a manic episode. It looked like a schizophrenic episode or whatever. It looked out of the ordinary, because it was out of the ordinary. I believed for a while that I was absolutely a creature of positively divine worth and origins. I thought I was, so spectacular, and I had a mission, and I'm Jesus Christ's female counterpart. I actually went to the hospital being, I think, 4 different characters. I know I was more than that because they didn't catch me every time that I had one of these experiences. But so I went into from maggot. I lived maggot, all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum, and I was Messiah. So I have maggot and Messiah. And because in my childhood, there was a lot of kids that just were attracted to something in me. I had that kind of, there was a piece of me that already knew I had something to offer, so there was, even though I was telling myself I was a piece of shit, I was getting external validation that wasn't true. So anyway, so I cracked wide open, and that's when the fun began. And as soon as I started having fun, they, of course, said, you're schizophrenic. And I went, oh, of course, how could I possibly think God loves me and I have any worth? Asshole. So I went back to being a miserable asshole for some more years, and that was created that sort of enjoyment. Hating yourself senseless. And then I had another episode, and so on. So what's been happening ever since is kind of an integration of the Messiah end and really embracing my inner maggot. I got that too, that's okay. They're all part of the all. You want to say something?
Definitely. So what was a catalyst for you that got you to crack open and have this intuition that you have more and that you're here to serve more, rather than being this piece of shit version of yourself you're now this growth-oriented love being expressing gratitude and peace into the world. What was the catalyst for you to go from where you were to where you are?
I mean, there were many little pieces along the way, but I really think the biggest things that made the difference were literal kind of messages from on high that I literally got one day. If it feels good, believe it. And if something feels better than that, throw that thing out and believe the thing that feels better. And that was a message that bubbled up within, that was language, which I am usually not getting, clear messages from the divine in language, but I do have impulses. Like, I want to do this thing, I just get a little impulse. I want to do that thing. And it feels like when I follow those impulses, I mostly do well. Sometimes that is, my impulses are counterfeit. So I'm still working on discerning in that way. But that message came through loud and clear. And oh no, before that one, it was, are you willing to feel or be worthy? Are you willing? So that was the first one, I think. And I felt like, I don't feel, and there was kind of that kind of background information that came, is like, I know you don't feel worthy. I know this isn't an honest statement at this point in time, but would you be willing, if it was possible, to feel worthy? And I just was blubbering my ass off on that one. It just came and I was crying. But and then there was if it feels good, believe it. And so those little kind of internal things were really the major shifters. But to get to that point, I'd been looking for solutions. I had been trying things. There's something called reevaluation counseling or co-counseling, where you trade attention with people equally. Like, I would give you 20 minutes, Dennis or Neil, and you would give me 20 minutes back, and we would just allow each other to, be the answer that we are, say whatever you want. But if there was any kind of emotional energy coming up, then we would invite that forward very specifically. And there's tools to stay there, offer people contradictions when they're saying I'm a piece of shit. It's like, okay, well, they'll say I am the most fantastic thing in the world, like, I am the most fantastic thing in the world. No, say it like you mean it 10 times. I'm the most fantastic thing in the world. I'm the most fantastic thing in the world. I'm the most fantastic thing in the world. You eventually you're working your way through your ego obstructions when you do that stuff. And so that was, a tool I used, and other things I found. So I found that. And then shortly after, and I will get into that more, but we can flesh this first part out. But after that, I found something called the Alternatives to Violence Project, which is a prison-based volunteer program that operates. It started in New York State after the Attica uprising, which is a bloody ass trauma of conflict between people who were incarcerated and people who were keeping them locked up. And there was really bad treatment going on in Attica, and the people that were uprose, we just can't do this anymore. And I believe there were prisons all over the state that were sort of, kind of in concert, but I'm not absolutely sure that's true. I heard that from people who were incarcerated, that there were more than one event, but the big event that got all the press was Attica. And people died on both sides of that equation. And people who were farmed from that prison to another prison ended up in a prison called, some of them, Greenhaven in New York State, which was not far from where I lived. So in 1975, there was a group called the Think Tank that were incarcerated people. And they saw they were in this prison with all these young men who were on a beeline for like destruction. And they said, we've got to do something. So they invited Quakers, who at this point were people that were sort of working on conflict resolution stuff. And that Quakers in turn invited civil rights leaders. And all together they built this thing called Alternatives to Violence Project. And at that point, when I went in in 92. It had been operating since 75 in prisons in New York State, and it had already spread to other countries. It's now been in 65 countries that I'm aware of at this point. I mean, there might be more And so it operates, it doesn't always, in other countries, it's not necessarily in prisons, but it's just whenever anybody really experiences that, well, often they want to spread it. It just is something that feels so bloody good that people really, and it's transformative like nobody's business. It has a spiritual underpinning called transforming power. And it turns out, I found out like 25 years into it that the Course in Miracles was a foundational piece of this Alternatives to Violence project. And the Course in Miracles is a foundational piece of my well-being. And it's, you know, something I've been studying for 20 odd years. And it's something that is very meaningful in the earthwaking community that I am a part of as well. So I'll be quiet for a while if you've got any. I had to hear somebody else's voice. That's one of the things about Piecework. Piecework is based on the Alternatives to Violence project with permission. We share the power, we share the airtime. So it's a little uncomfortable sometimes for me to just blah, 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 blah. Got any question? Got any thoughts?
So if there is somebody out there that would want to experience transformation in their life, they can reach out to you on the websites that are behind you.
That is true.
Okay.
And I would advise them as well. You know, this thing that I did when I was 33 was my first workshop, and I'm 63 now, so it's 30 years. I was in bad shape when I went to that workshop. I was not psychologically in a healthy place. And for some years after, I still had like just pain was kind of my resting place, just an emotional discomfort within myself. And but the first workshop I went to, they have an exercise called Adjective Name Game that we start off in the beginning, where everybody comes up with an affirming name for themselves that begins with the letter of their first name. Like, you know, could be nice Neil and daring Dennis, you know, some affirming thing. And so I could not come up with any positive thing that resonated. So I said nearly Noelle. That was the best I could come up with for my positive name in the beginning. And 3 days later, when we did our affirmation posters where we write our name on the top, I was newly Noelle. And that was literal. That was a literal, within that 3-day period, I had just experienced enough transformation. People heal, trauma heals in groups. And that's what happened for me. It was just, you know, if anybody's going through something, we all get healed. And people were, you know, taking turns going through things.
In your opinion, like, why is that we can heal better through being in groups and heal our traumas together? In your opinion, or if you have a truth that goes with that, like, what is that about?
Well, I think it's because we're one. I do. I think it's because we're one. There's an exercise that when I make up an exercise, this is let me explain a little bit. Alternatives to Violence Project and Piecework are circle activities, although they've been happening on Zoom, where in the prison, you know, 25 people is quite reasonable to have in a group. I've been in groups that really went well with over 40 people. So you can have a lot of people, but we're in a circle and we're doing things together, activities, with some kind of thought about what's going into the structure. Like we start with affirmation. We start doing things like that adjective name exercise is an affirmation exercise. Each of us is coming up with some, you know, beautiful identity. And then we're all repeating everybody's names around the circle. So, you know, okay, you know, that's daring Dennis, nice Neil, and now Noelle. And now, you know, I'm, you know, caring Christina, that's daring Dennis. Nice Neil, now Noelle, caring Christina. So you just go all the way around the circle. And by the end of that exercise, everybody knows everybody by their affirming adjective name. We've all laughed our asses off because by number 25, it's hard for that person to remember everybody, but somehow it happens. So it just is and then there's Another building block after affirmation is communication. So we would be in some kind of opportunity where pairs get to speak back and forth on some topic, like, something I'm good at is, for 2 minutes or whatever. And you can just feel in a prison, particularly where people are often in opposite gangs, you've got, all kinds of dynamics there, but you can feel just the tension go out of the room within the first half hour. And I was belly laughing within the first hour, and I just, it's 18 to 22 hours over 3 days in the prison. And by the end of that time, I was like so convinced, because I had 24 pairs of eyes loving me, that there was something of value here. And so when you ask, what is the thing that heals? It's I don't know. I mean, I was talking about this exercise. So I pray for exercises and agendas when I do the work. I say, what does this next group of people need? And give me that. And I got this wonderful exercise a long time ago when I was training psychiatrists. Sometimes, people, I did piecework in the mental health realm as a service provider for training staff. Staff need to know how to treat people, because they are trained a certain way, but it's much more helpful if they know from the people's experience. No, I know your college book told you that, but that's actually counterproductive. If you want me to get it better, throw that shit out the window. It's bogus nonsense. But here, so I had to get up in front of all these professionals and tell them my truth, and the truth that I felt was going to serve them in their work. And I was feeling so insecure. So I prayed for an exercise, and I got this incredible exercise called Seeds of Equality. And it involves magic beans. Most likely they look like lima beans, but they're not. And everybody gets big handfuls of magic beans. And we all answer questions. Have you ever, had trouble giving up a behavior long after you knew better? Have you ever, had voices in your head saying nasty, judgmental things about you or other? Have you ever, that sort of question? And everybody's throwing beans, all these professionals laughing their ass off, because all of these things are human traits. They're not insane people traits. I'm not remembering all the questions, but there's such, have you ever had somebody judge you for something beyond your control? Have you ever, so it's just, everybody's had some of this stuff. So there's just not a single question that I ask that everyone isn't throwing. Have you ever been resentful when somebody tried to get you to give up a behavior before you were ready? Have you ever, so, throwing. And then I ask, a big piece of this process is debriefing. So we go through an exercise together that's really out of the ordinary kind of activity. And then what was that like? How did that feel? How did you notice it would apply in your life? What, is there some kind of a new vision that you have because you went through this? And people just start chewing on it. And it's like bringing up the wisdom that we already have, but we didn't really know we had. We heal because we recognize, oh, I'm one. And then when I debrief to a person, every time I did a training, they would realize, well, there, but for the grace of God, go I, because there is every single thing that we're diagnosing as mental illness. I've got it, and I'm the care provider. And that's the truth. We're all in this together. So if somebody gets a sense,
I love that. I really love that about how all the shit that's in other people, it's within us, and we can recognize that, and we can heal it or begin to heal it. But just the recognition that that's a thing, like we all have like similar shit, but literally even it's like the same, like we have the same feelings that come up, the same emotions. And I really resonated with what you said there.
Me too. And I cannot tell you, if I didn't have that exercise, I wouldn't have been able to do my job. I mean, that's how big, and it makes me so grateful. I mean, I just feel a wash of emotion, just so much gratitude, because how could I show up with these people when I was feeling inferior? That's the dynamic. You're sick, I'm well, and you can't get better when you think that you're down here and somebody else is up here. It has to be that we're equals, which is something I so love about this format, because there are facilitators. Ideally, it's done in a group, a team. So, if you guys were like mad about it, instantly you're going to get trained, and you can start the first day, because there's simple things you could start doing. So it's a great model for leadership. This basic structure, first I said affirmation, communication. In terms of Alternatives to Violence project, it would be some kind of cooperative exercises, and then conflict resolution type exercises that could be, listening skills, things like nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. I mean, we steal from everywhere. Everyone steals from us. And that's the way it should be. We want this world sane. We don't have to be so proprietary about everything, which, by the way, I will use that as a little plug. On both those websites above me, there is something called a Piecework Toolkit, which is free to download. It's 110 pages of explanation of this process with everything you need to get going and doing it. And the reason, yes, you may make big fat donations, although right now I don't have a button on my website because something went haywire there. But the reason I want to do this is because I 100% believe every single circle, if there's 3 people in it, if there's 2 people in it, but oftentimes, in the work I'm doing now, there's, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10, 11, 12 people. And we, as a little microcosm, elevate the consciousness of the whole, every single group. So that's why I give it, I sell it, I share it, I will promote it. I am a zealot for it, because I know, for it to change my life so drastically in 3 days. And I've seen people transform in 20 minutes. I've done little 20-minute little bites of it, and people have transformed. So it has got some magic attached. It is, I think, a very big part of the unfolding of the new earth. It's because it's spreading, and every time a circle happens. And what I am a part of in the Alternatives to Violence project is there's something called the Adaptations Committee. So now that we're encouraging people, if you love this format, create something around your passion. A 5-year-old could do this. This is the new part of the new education thing Jonathan talks about in the earthwaking community. It's like it's just anybody gets a joy. There's a little bit of a structure. There's a little bit of an understanding of how to do it. Go ahead.
So when you talk about the new earth, like for somebody that's not maybe heard of what the new earth is, like what does the new earth look like to you, and what can you elaborate on that?
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't used to use that language so much, but I got involved with Jonathan England and Kirk McDowell and Melinda Love and those people who were the pinnacles. Chris Geraldini, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce her name because I always call her Chris. And then other people like me who were attracted and joined a person. Jonathan England he was a blackout drunk, militant, evangelist, atheist, beach bum, punk rocker who didn't have a clue into the world that he now is really mastering, and he totally did not buy into anything hopeful the way he is now promoting tremendously hopeful stuff. And like the Alternatives to Violence project, when I went to a free event called Awaken Life Live, and that was in August of 2020, so that was 22, I knew right away, within a very short time, this is for me. There's something here that is 100% I'm supposed to be here. And I got that with Alternatives to Violence project. And for me, Alternatives to Violence project has come to a point, and there may not make it past the hump. And the hump is political correctness. The hump is being more concerned about making the past right by the past is wrong. The past, but there's another way to look at it. The past is perfect because the past is what led us to now. My shitty ass childhood was perfect because it's what led me to be who I am now. I needed every little ingredient. So, but the point of political correctness that I think is going to damage the most beautiful hearted people is because we have to let it go, no matter how unfair it seems, no matter how, if we want the new, we literally have to just let the old fall away. And it's not fair, but there's every single portion of our world has its element of not fair. White males who are, attributed with all the kinds of, success and winning, and it's a miserable freaking life for so many white males. It's just not, the majority of white males are not at the top of any mountain, and their suicide rates are way higher. Their relationship with their kids are much more there's just a million ways white males have it shitty, and we won't even consider looking at that. So it's just like we're all victims. If we could all, and that's where we could rest, or we could anyway. So the new world is a vision of a place where we are living what we know we came here to live. I've known my whole life that this wasn't good enough. What I'm seeing out there is not good enough. And I came to believe when I had my experiences that were called illness, that we are really powerful beyond measure, which is something they say a lot in the earthwaking community. We have the power to reconstruct this dream. In the Course in Miracles, it's a dream. That's all it is. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So, if I can go to sleep at night and say, oh, I'm dreaming, oh, good, I could fly. I could do that in this waking dream. There's possibilities. There are literally people who have not eaten food for 19 years. Go look it up on YouTube. Breatharians. Nothing that we believe in is written in stone, except maybe love. And I don't think we have a clue what love is. I think, until we really, awaken, and I don't claim to be an awake person. I claim to be a waking up person. But until we really, really know it, because we are humming in the vibration of it, then we don't even know what love is. But at least it's a good thing to keep your eye on the prize of heading in the direction of. I don't know if that answered your question. Oh, new earth. Anyway, yeah. So I want a happy dream. That's it. I want a utopian dream. I want one, and it isn't one. I think people talk about how boring heaven would be. I don't think so. I think, we can maintain our memories of how horrible hell was. So if we want to, we can check in. And what I'm looking forward to is just the co-creative process. In the earthwaking community, there's a form of currency called nature coin, which is backed by land. Fancy that. Land that will grow your food. Wow. Water that you will drink to survive. Although we may find out we don't need that at some point, but until we really get solid there, we want our food and we want our water. And people who love the land, caring for the land. It happens to be, I know, Neil, for sure. You too, Dennis. Are you both land lovers? Are you both growing things like crazy out there? Just, go ahead. You brag a little.
Yes. Yesterday, so I trimmed 3 garden beds yesterday, and I was trimming hibiscus cuttings and some wali llama and another herb, some baby sage and another plant. And from these trimmings, things just grow here. And from these trimmings that I cut off these plants, I actually replanted the trimmings, and now there's whole new plants growing from trimmings that I took off another plant. It's so fun, and it's so empowering to just see food just grow out of the ground and be part of it, and be in an energetic connection with it, and be just filled up from the inside out with gratitude for what's around me.
So I want lots of that. Lots of that. And I want, I see that in the village, they're always making music. There's a lot of people that love to make music. And I just want people to, and so here we have Nature Coin, and we have something called Tree of Life Central. And that's .com, Tree of Life Central. And go look on there. If you learn about Nature Coin, you can purchase things that people are exchanging for Nature Coin. I'll try not to use the word sell, because sell has like a very negative connotation at this point, but just exchanging energy of their heart for energy of the earth and, human needs. And when Neil is working the land that I have my Nature Coin invested in, my Nature Coin becomes more valuable every day. Every little trimming and planting he's doing is making my financial life, and I have been dirt poor, technically speaking. I got help from my mom. She's not dirt poor, but she's not filthy rich either. But my whole existence, I am like loaded with Nature Coin. I am like super rich. I am rich to the point that if anybody out there wants to fall in love with this village and move in and start building, I will pay you to build me some structures that I might be able to offer as rent to own structures, because I don't think everybody in the village might have as much Nature Coin as I do. So I can build things, and then they can rent to own, so that they can pay me off for what I invested, and maybe even a little profit. I'm trying to become all right with making a little profit here and there. And then that land that I have invested in through Nature Coin becomes worth more. You see what I'm saying? This is all freaking logical. This is beautiful. So the new earth, it works out so that everybody gets to live their dream. So we're exchanging things of their heart. On the Tree of Life Central Exchange, sell piecework stuff. I've sold some stuff that has or I've exchanged some stuff that has to do with my tools for getting through some of the worst of the mental health challenges, which feels to me, what I've learned for me is moving energy, things that move energy. Because if you're living a lie, what Jonathan calls you're stacking and packing, I would feel like it was a pressure cooker. That was my word for it. But you're pressurizing emotion, because you're not, first of all, you're lying, you're not being your true self. So you keep adding to the pressure. Every time you don't tell the truth and it hurts you in some way, you're just pushing, and then it blows. So I learned for my mental health to just keep energy moving. God, is that hour already going? It's almost, this hour's already going almost. I can't even believe it. What a blabbermouth. I love that.
And I love that as well. People could use more conscious blabbermouths in their life.
Well, I've enjoyed it no end. So let me just make sure I get all the little pieces I wanted to say. So I love my piecework, and I think, I was doing it in the mental health realm for a couple of decades. And when I found earthwaking, I realized, because people, when I shared it with them, it would offer transformation, but these were not the people who necessarily really wanted transformation. Some did, but I would say that wasn't, because that wasn't the orientation. People would really be believing I'm mentally ill, and I'd come in and show them something, because I did it with peers and I did it with staff as well. So and I got one little brag I'll slip in there, but I've done it for the Mental Health Association in Ulster County, New York, and also Rochester. So Mental Health Association is a national organization, and that was Rochester, New York. And at one, I did it for a couple of years in person in Ulster County. And when I left, that went on until COVID closed the thing down, and it was their most attended program. And it was run by the inmates, the people who, they said they had a staff member there, and they would not probably, they might see this, so they might try to sue me. But the truth of the matter is, there were staff members, one after the other, in and out. Some of them loved it, some of them didn't get it at all, didn't like it at all. But the people who knew how to do the process just kept it going because it was the most attended program. So, and it was just fun because everybody was empowered. Everybody was doing it. So they were doing their own program. I think that was cool. And then another cool thing was I did it in Rochester. Somebody said, could you come on a Zoom call during COVID and just bring some piecework? Because some of the people there had experienced some. On this call, I think basically only one or two had experienced it before. And I said, the most useful thing I can do is to teach you how to do this. I had 1 hour and I taught them, I brought my agenda, but I told them how to do it. And they, one by one, I got the exercise, but if you'll step up and do this piece, if you'll step up and do that piece, and they did every single piece. And one woman who had never done anything before led 2 pieces, and the staff member on the call was weeping because she had not seen this woman step up at all. So and then this hour-long investment, which I got paid $25 for, by the way, was their most attended program. Yeah, so I mean, this stuff really does have some magic to it. It really, really does. And Alternatives to Violence Project, you can look that up, U.S.A. They also have a .international, A.V.P. .international is one of the sites too. So you can look them up, and they have an enormous amount of research about how this stuff has been helpful, and they have a lot of just wonderful resources, and I as well have resources. So okay, I'm going to circle back to one thing I was saying before, and then I will be quiet and see if we're going to wrap this up. But the Earthwaking community has given me the opportunity to do this with people that are serious about waking up, serious about divesting of all the ballast that is keeping the ship sailing full steam to the new earth, to heaven on earth, to our utopia that we really are. I mean, why else would we be here? I mean, it's just common sense to me at this point. So I want to work with those folks.
Right? What else is there to do, right?
Especially here when it looks like the shit is literally going to hit the fan any moment. We might as well be full steam ahead into some beautiful ideal, because we got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
And speaking on what you just said, I feel like this polarity of us realizing, and I'm talking on a macro scale, like globally, I feel like we have to go through whatever we're going through to know what that is that we do truly want.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
And I believe that we are very, very close to having gone through what we don't want, and then we're going to emerge on the other side. You know, and I'm very grateful for what Earthwaking is doing, and the villagers and you, and because we're at the forefront of leading this, being this example of what's possible for the new world, and on the other side of everything that's going on out there.
I love that. I wanted to say one thing. I put earthwakingvillage.com up there, and I put Awaken Life Live, which is my favorite of their events. They have amazing events, and I'm not sure how often they're going to do it. There's actually, I don't know when this is coming out. Just be in touch, regular events. So, but Jonathan makes the point, and I just feel like it's worth making the point. It's looking scary out there, but if all things work for good, if God is really in charge, then whatever it looks like, I had a line of a song. I got a bunch of songs that came through in a kind of divine way, I think. But one of the lines was, if I believe in love, what is there for me to fear? Things could surely never be the way that they appear. So things are not the way they appear. And if we can really, and this community will help you with this, if we can really own that, if we can really let me rest in that. I just was a big ass fire. I'm living in Northern California, right in my backyard. And I just went, okay, I wanted to declutter. I guess this is the way it's going to happen. We did evacuate, but there was not a lot of fear. I mean, I'm just going to let this stuff go. And my mother and our dog and our little trapped mouse that we have in a 10-gallon tank, everybody's going out, save the lives as best we can. But, even if that's on the line, and his point in church, there's a beautiful church, Awaken spiritual gathering every Sunday. Oh my God, it's so meaningful. But anyway, if we can get to a point where nuclear war, oh well, that must be part of the plan, and I'm okay with that. If we can get to that level of okayness, then there's a big chance, and really, I mean, that just elevates everybody. I'm not going to fear. You can't make me. I'm a love person. I'm just not doing that. If enough of us do that, then we don't need to blow ourselves up. We will be the thing that spreads. There's a quote from anyway, the Chardin is his last name. And it's at some point we're going to harness the energies of God, of love, and for the second time, man will have discovered fire. And that's what we're doing here. We've got the little flame going right now. It's the little flames going, and it's going to just take over. And I think that's my time.
We do, like it's already beginning, and we do have more time, Noelle. So
Okay,
we do have another like 15 minutes or so.
Really? Wow. Okay,
we'll
cool.
go to 22. And but like, what were you saying right before I started this?
Nuclear war. We don't.
Yes,
we got to be okay with that.
And being okay with it, and about the fire that's already arising, and it's like the God force that's within us, and that like it's the second fire. Discovering of fire, that's already happening. People are already feeling those flames within them, and it's because that is happening is that these things now in our external are showing up and trying to mitigate that and trying to slow it or try to stop it.
Amen.
And it's happening because the God is happening within, and it's this recognition of if love isn't winning, like it's not the end yet, and because in the end love is everything. And because of that, now that it's beginning to arise and come into the forefront of many people's lives, there's this recognition and this stifling of that love, and it's being done through fear, it's being done through shame, it's being done through guilt, and none of those are love, but they are love when we can recognize that love is all there is.
Beautiful job. So have either of you got any thoughts or questions? I'm not really sure if I've left anything out that I do have, like mind maps. I write them up. That's part of our education and earthwaking is mind mapping, but then I don't look at them. But at least I wrote them up. Anyway. Sorry, I'm taking a peek at this. Yeah, one piece I said was it's a one size fits all thing. I have done this with people in homeless shelters. I've done this with children. I've done this with teenagers. I've done this with families. That's a really big one. Families, if people have a situation, a dynamic, and this could work in teams, like at work also. I have prayed for and received a bunch of exercises that really help people have what could be head-on conflict in a very non-confrontational way, with tons of humor, lots of affirmation. So people will say the things, like an example of an exercise in the family circle is, tell me what I want, what I really want. And so names go in a hat, and the universe picks who goes first. Okay, Uncle Bob, what does Uncle Bob want? And everybody brainstorms what Uncle Bob wants. And everybody knows Uncle Bob, so everybody knows what Uncle Bob wants. And so he has gotten his message out through other people's mouths. He doesn't have to defend or fight or talk about what he wants. He's gotten it told to him by his family members. And when we're done with Uncle Bob, we say, is that right? Anything you want to add? Anything you want to fix? And Uncle Bob gets to edit that a little bit. And then the next person goes. And so, this is a way for so much to come up and out without any kind of direct flames, hurled at one another. And the transformations that I've seen in this, and I've been in family therapy, I've, done stuff like that. This is so far surpasses, in my opinion, that. And one of my wishes for it was that people who are incarcerated, especially who are involved with Alternatives to Violence Project, would come out of prison in a mental state that was really much more, aware because they had worked on themselves in prison, and then they'd have to integrate into their families, and it was very difficult. There are, have to be upwards of, I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands of people that have been trained since 1975 in this process. And many of them are formerly incarcerated people that couldn't come home and say, I'm going to go start my nonprofit. It's going to be 5 years before I earn any money. I hope you don't mind. I know I've been locked up for 20 years, but no, they don't do that. So they go and they get the first job that they can oftentimes. Some people do actually manage to get jobs in nonprofits and bring Alternatives to Violence Project in some form to their work, but many, many do not. So it's like a dream that they would be put to work. I mean, to me, that's like a workforce for peace, immediate, plug them in. And I wanted them to be able to have their families know about family circles so that they could bring their families kind of up to a level with them as far as conscious awareness. So,
and that's really only possible when the individual who, like, he has to do the work or she has to do the work himself to be able to then express that and have other people heal from that expression. But that's only possible if the individual himself or herself does the inner work to progress their own self, and thus progress others by just being themselves at that time.
That helps. And these circles are helpful because they put people in a circumstance of looking at things through an exercise, or that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, and specifically asks them, okay, we went through this weird thing, what did you notice about that? And so people start bringing up to consciousness things that were in there that they didn't already know. All I know is, I've done things with people. Yeah, there has to be that willingness. Absolutely. And if people will come to a family circle, they're at least that much willing. And, yeah, my first family circle was, I had an aunt who had 3 adult children, and she wanted me to come to California. I lived in New York at that time, to run interference when she was dying, because her children were going to bust her ass trying to work things through. And she said, I've been trying to work things through with these kids and they will not do it. And I'm just not willing to be dying and having them trying to do it. So I want to pay you your airfare, you come out here, you run interference. I was like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want to be standing in the way of like these adults being with their mother when she's dying. So I wrote a letter to the family, and I just outlined some of the things that I thought were going on dynamically. And then I said, if you want to do this family circle, and one person showed up, but then that person showed up again, and then another person showed up. And by the time all this, little bit of exercises were done, I would say 3 or 4 circles, I wasn't needed. I don't think I was wanted. I mean, they like me, but I was not necessary. And she had a fine exit with her children. And, it's always been that powerful. 2 divorces, but they were loving uncouplings, and it was not going that way, and I don't know anything about what's going to happen. I just give it all to God and do the exercises,
That's beautiful. And I just want to acknowledge and respect you for being here and opening your heart and expressing your creativity and expressing your God self from within. So thank you so much, Noelle. I greatly appreciate you. You want to add anything, Dennis, or?
I I just want to second what Neil said. I appreciate you being here, Noelle, and sharing your gifts with the world, making the world the place always a better place because of your presence and your gifts. And yes, thank you for your time and your sharing these moments.
You're welcome, and thank you guys for being who you are. If I just want to share, I'm going to do a little promotion for my friends. I paid 66 nature coin to have this little podcast, and that was really worth it for me. And if you're wanting to have your beautiful message, and hopefully it's one that is heading in the same direction, then you can look them up. I presume that their offering is on the Tree of Life Central for 66 nature coin, and just sit here, be treated like royalty and made much of, and get your message out. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Noelle, and stay blessed.
You too.